Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Steve Down and this is my guitar. If you're just joining us, this is the 4th week episode lesson on Midnight Blue by Kenny Burrell. We are taking the solo, learning it, dissecting it, understanding how Kenny might have been thinking when he was playing the solo, and what devices, be those harmonic, melodic or rhythmic, that he was using to inform his playing. And then we will be learning how to use those within our own solos, because we don't want to have it just as a standalone party piece. We want to be able to actually learn about it and put it into our own solos and use it creatively. And that's the aim of this lesson. If you want to go back to lessons 1 to 3, then that might give you a bit more of an overarching view of the solo. But this week we will be looking at chord melody in a solo. So if YouTube has brought you here via the search mechanism, then just stay on this video and have a look at those ones in a later date. This week, as I said, we are looking at more in the kind of harmonic area of soloing and how to use chord melody in a solo. So for those of you who don't know what that is, that's essentially taking a chord and placing your melody note for your solo at the top of it. So if your melody note is this, then you can put this chord over the top of it, or this chord, or this chord, or this chord. So you could put, a number of different chords over the top of that. We are in the F minor tonal area for this solo. So we'll be looking at voicings of the F minor 7 chord and F minor chord, and also looking at some of the dominant stuff like C7 altered. And we'll also be looking at a couple of other of the chords that Kenny uses in this. So that's the aim of this lesson. If you really like this, if you get through this video and you like it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to hear more. And then if you really like what I'm doing here and you want to support me in making more, then Patreon's the place to go for that. And there's a link coming up on the screen now. Thanks to all of these subscribers, people who commented, people who shared it, and Gary, who's the new patron this week. Big thanks to you as well. So on with the lesson. Let's take a look at the A section. So we're going to be splitting this into two, this A section. It's different from the way that Kenny has approached the previous A sections. In the previous 2 choruses, he's been doing a little melody line and then accompanying it with some chords underneath. Now we're combining the 2. So he's actually playing a chord and his melody at the same time. So let's take a look at the first half of it and we'll unpack it and we'll look at what devices he's using and how we can use them in our own solo. In this section of it, he is using what we would call drop 2 voicings. So if you're experienced in jazz already and you've been studying it for a little while, then the term drop 2 voicings might be something that you're familiar with. But for those who aren't, I'm just going to briefly explain what a drop 2 voicing is. So when you are playing your various different inversions of chords, you'll have, for instance, for F minor 7, you'll have your notes F, A flat, C, and E flat. Now, in that order, they are in what we call root position. So F, A flat, C, and E flat. If we play it in root position on the guitar, we end up with this kind of voicing. which is quite a big stretch and quite an uncomfortable chord, really. It's obviously we can play it, I can stretch to it, but the further we go up the neck into the next inversions, into the first inversion and into the second inversion and then on into the third inversion, the stretches get a little bit more difficult and unplayable. So what we do on the guitar is we have this device called a drop 2 voicing, which is essentially where you take the second highest note and drop it down an octave. So in this case, for this voicing, if we drop that second highest note down an octave, we end up with this voicing here, which is a bit more of a playable voicing. If we do that for all of our inversions, then we end up with this. So for those of you who don't know what inversions are where you rearrange the notes that you've got within the chord. So for a root position, you would have F, A flat, C, E flat. For a first inversion, that F would disappear to the other end, so you would end up with A flat, C, E flat, and F. And then you would do the same thing for the next inversion, so that would leave you with C, E flat, F, A flat. And then because we've got a -7 chord and we've got 4 notes in there, for the third inversion, you would end up with E flat, F, A flat, C. And then we can drop 2 all of those. So Kenny is using a drop 2 voicing here. So what he's doing is he's actually taking off that note, but if we played it as a full voicing, it would be like that. And then he's also using another of the drop 2 voicings down here as well. This that he does here, this is a chord built in fourths off of the pentatonic scale. So you can see, if you know this position of your pentatonic scale, then you can see these notes, they are within the pentatonic scale. And he's just built a fourths, a triad in fourths across the top of it. So B flat, E flat, A flat. So there's no point in really kind of analysing that as any kind of chord. You would just see it as a stack of fourths. And this is a kind of thing that was being used around that time by people like Bill Evans, this kind of like fourthsy idea. And if you want to kind of go further into that in the more modern guitar realm, then Pat Metheny's a guy to look at who uses fourths voicings quite a lot. A really common fourths voicing is this one here. So this is one that you'll find on the record Kinda Blue, on the track So What. So obviously I'm playing it in F here, on the record it's in and as it moves up the key. Kenny's using fourths here. So we've got, and then he's using a partial voicing of a C sharp 9, sharp 5. So if we put the bass in there, he's letting the bass player take care of that bass note there. So drop 2, there's that sharp 9 going to the another drop 2 voicing, and then playing that sharp 9, sharp 5 voicing again, and then goes up to another voicing of the C sharp 5, sharp 5, sharp 9 chord at the top here. So you can see also he's pivoting off of this F note here. So it's kind of like his touch point there. So that might be something that we can use in our solos. Let's move into the second half of it, which is very similar, and we'll discuss some ways that we can use this in our solos and how we actually learn how to play chord melody solos. So let's take a look at the second half. So in this one, it's more repetition. As I said in the last video, repetition is key in this solo, and Kenny is using a lot of it. So here he repeats a carbon copy of the first half. But what I wanted to talk about here is not about repetition, but how we actually go about using this technique in the solo, in our solos. If you remember in the last lesson, I talked about how important it is to learn the scale laterally. And this is where our melody notes are going to come from for the minor pentatonic scale. So let's take a quick look at that lateral scale now. This is what Kenny's using as his palette for the melody. And then underneath he's harmonizing it with his chords. So the notes that he's playing, his melody is... So all minor pentatonic stuff. Now what we can do to learn how to do this is we can take our various voicings and we can learn what notes from the minor pentatonic scale in that lateral form are nearest to our drop 2 voicings. So here we've got that note and that note. And then here we've got that note. So that's probably all that we can play there to stretch to. And then here we've got that one, and then here we've got this one here. So, you know, we've covered the whole scale with all of those voicings. So we can solo using that. I was using a bit more of that fourthsy thing there at the end there. So if you're just starting out and doing this, then take all of your voicings and learn what note is nearest with that lateral scale and experiment with playing between them. If you're a little bit more advanced, then the next thing to look at is partial voicings and going down onto the next lot of strings. So you could go down here and learn the scale on this string, and you could do some partial voicings. So and you could try improvising with those voicings on there. But as I said, if you're just starting out, then maybe use the top string. So let's move on to the B section and see what he's doing there. For the start of it, he's using a lot of material from the head. So he's using this voicing there for those 2 notes. Again, as I said last time, if you're just starting this out, then take your voicing and see what notes are around that are within the scale. The scale for us here is the altered scale. So he's using that over the top of the G minor 7 flat 5. So Kenny's actually going a little bit off piste here with his voicings. This is the beauty of not having a harmony instrument there. He's only got a bass player to contend with, so he can actually take it in whatever direction he wants to harmonically without having to worry about too many clashes. So he's actually playing over the top of the G there, and then he resolves it to this chord here for the C. So less altered here. So this is basically a B flat major triad with a C in the bass. And this is really great because it brings out some of the extensions, the diatonic extensions within the chord. So with that B flat, which is B flat, D and F, we've got B flat, which is the flat 7, D, which is the 9th, and F, which is the 11th. So, and then what he does is he actually moves this finger back here to an E to make it a C9 there. So that's a nice voicing of a C9 that's a bit different from what you might know, which is either that one or the James Brown one that's there. So he's using a partial voicing of it here. So it's a bit, what he's kind of doing there is just punctuating, I think, there. So his melody is that. So again, really funky and syncopated offbeat. Let's look at the next section of it and we'll talk about that. So this section here he's resolving onto that F minor and then going to the B flat 7. But he's actually using, this is really lovely voice leading here. So he's using an F minor 9 voicing here. And the voicing of B flat 13, which is what he's playing here, you're not moving very many frets. You're actually only really moving 2 notes, these two, the F and the E flat, and we're moving those to B flat and D. So 2 out of the 4 are staying in position, which is lovely voice leading, and that's the kind of thing we want if you can get that into your solos, that's a really, really good thing. Let's look at the next section. So this section here is a carbon copy, actually, of the head. So in terms of chords, but the kind of approach he does, he varies the melody. So and then what he actually does, he varies it a touch, actually. So it's not an exact carbon copy. He makes that minor 7, sorry, that minor 9. He adds a 6 in there. So he's actually making it a minor 6/9. Okay, so this little bit at the end. That's just some more of the D flat Mixolydian scale stuff, and then back to blues scale. And then a really George Benson-esque slide on fourths there. So you can hear that from it's like Gimme the Night, isn't it there? So we've got a lot of stuff in there in that second half. And I think the way that we can view this is that when we've got really difficult chords, like we've got here, we can make our life easier by quoting the head or the melody. If we're just starting out. I mean, Kenny does it beautifully here, and he wasn't starting out. So you can see that this approach is actually really valuable just, anyway. But if you do want to take it further, then, guys like Ted Green, Wes Montgomery, Martin Taylor, they're all good guys to listen to and to study, because they do take this approach a bit further. So, some things that we can take away from this. I think number one, the first thing, again, is repetition. And number two on there, equally as important, is learning your lateral scale up the neck, so that we've got something to use for our melody. And then also after that, I think the next number 3 thing is to learn your drop 2 voicings. So make sure you've got these 4 voicings for your minor 7 chord. And then lastly, number 4, I think, is learning how to re-quote the head when you've got really difficult chord changes, and when the chord changes come thick and fast, like this section. And you can go a little bit off-piste by varying it just a touch, like Kenny does, like that. So hopefully that's helpful to you. If you've made it all the way through the video, well done, and thank you for watching. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you like it. And if you really like it, then Patreon's the place to go to support me. And the link is on the screen now. So have fun practicing, and I'll see you next week. Next week's a little bit of a scary one, because we've got a really ridiculously fast passage, which I'm not looking forward to. But I'm going to spend a week really shedding that and putting together a lesson for you on that. So have fun practicing, and I'll see you next time.